Welcome to the Creepin' It Real Show, your one-stop shop for weird news, movie reviews, otherworldly, and paranormal shenanigans. We'll take a dive into what's going on in creepy pop culture. You can follow Creepin' It Real Show on Twitter at creepin_it. You can email us at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com. And you can also go to our website, creepinitshow.com. Welcome to Creepin' It Real. I'm one of your hosts, Yardley, coming live and direct from Atlanta, Georgia. I want to bring in both of my co-hosts. First, from the great state of California, we have Moni.
What's up, everybody? I apologize in advance. I am vacation/work vacation Comic-Con brained right now, so we'll see how this goes because I'm too excited and too busy to even be thinking about anything else.
Hey, you know what? That's what's up. There was apparently a Comic-Con here in Atlanta this weekend. I think it was called Atlanta Comic-Con. Is that it, Christy?
I have no idea. Never heard of it.
That sounds
was
familiar,
one.
though, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of people had asked me about the Comic-Con this weekend, so apparently there was one that I wasn't able to go to, but seeing as I'm asking Christy questions, how are you doing up north?
Hey, everybody. Doing well. I worked all weekend, so I'm in the exhausted brain stage. That I'm working on my
yesterday,
yeah, I'm working on second cup of coffee, and it's pretty brutal. Part of my jobs on the weekend is to travel to small towns and stand in the sun and interact with people, and I'm not very good with that. I mean, I'm good at the time, but it just completely drains me, so I'm just like a giant ball of ugh right now, but I'm ready to get into this ridiculous podcast we have coming up. It should be quite entertaining.
Hey, well, speaking of entertaining, I guess we should probably just go ahead and dive into weird news before we jump into 2016's The Boy. Christy, what do you got?
Well, I thought I would post a weird news since we're talking about somebody who's a nanny. This woman wasn't nannying a kid. She was nannying 82 grams of drugs, and she kept it in her vagina to keep it nice and safe. So I thought this would be a nice little segue involved with our movie. A Wisconsin woman is facing felony drug charges after police say they found about 82 grams of drugs in her vagina.
Wow.
They pulled over her 1997 Monte Carlo on June 25th. Her companion was a convicted drug dealer, was also in the car. Officers pulled over the car after getting a tip that she might be selling heroin, cocaine, marijuana, meth, and other drugs. Police dogs showed...
She's a party, man.
Yeah, she's a walking, talking party. Police dogs showed particular interest in the driver's seat, where Webster had been sitting at the time of the stop. After a corrections officer performed a strip search on Webster, she suggested there was something hidden in her vagina. Sorry. After a scan...
If you're a drug user, she's like a real... Because there's like every guy, straight guy, wants to go to the promised land, right? And then like once you get there, it's just full of drugs. Like it is a win-win all around.
Win-win. That's the best type of trick-or-treating
Exactly.
I can think about. Dibble and dabble.
They said they found a plastic bag that was the size of a human fist up there. And I think the thing that these people don't think about, I mean, I get that drugs are important and precious, but if that bag had broke, she would have died like in an instant. Like your body can't just absorb that much drugs. So here's the breakdown. That bag contained 36 grams of cocaine, 14 grams of meth, 27 grams of synthetic weed, 6 MDMA ecstasy pills, and 1.26 grams of marijuana.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm in awe right now. I can't think of any like other way to smuggle. And honestly, like, how much money did she make before this doing the same thing? And she just got caught this time. Like, she is a walking party.
Yeah, she really is.
Well, I'm wondering, would she... Wow, I mean, well, and also the fact that she was able to stash all of that right after getting pulled over.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, that's...
I had a few kids is all I'm saying.
Well, apparently.
Oh, wow.
She got a quick stash pocket.
Well, that's... yeah, that's well, you know what? I would say that that's in Atlanta. You can't make. There have been stories that are kind of similar to this, where people try to get contraband, whether up their ass or in their vagina.
She went above and beyond caring for those drugs. That is a nanny of the. She'd make nanny of the year, in my opinion.
More like below and beyond, but yes.
So tell us, Moni, in your story about a sexual style assault by a pee-pee doll.
Yeah, I mean, don't you hate it when you go to one of those hibachi restaurants and someone pulls down their pants and pees in your face? Don't you hate that?
What?
But it's a doll. So basically, and every time I click over on it, the video automatically starts, and I don't. God damn it! Stop it! But there we go. Old ladies wrestling with technology. Please excuse me. So
I see a picture of it now.
Yes, the doll's he's cute / creepy adjacent, and I thought he was a good fit with talking about the movie The Boy, because he kind of has that same creepy blank face. But this woman, they went to the Japanese steakhouse in Tennessee, which, you were definitely going to get the best Japanese experience in Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody, they do the whole show. If you've ever been to one of those places, and they do the rice as a volcano and all these cool things. They throw eggs, whatever. And apparently as part of the show, they bring out this little doll and they spray water. And, granted, it's not the classiest thing, because when they squeeze on the back of it, they demonstrated it, the pants come down and he squirts water. It's, it's kind of tacky, but it's cute adjacent. But anyway, the chef made the bad decision to spray this woman in the face with it, and she has a full-on police report now about how she was sexually assaulted by a pee-pee doll.
I mean, the quote, he pulled his little shorts down and it had a wanger, and he squirted me right in the face.
Well, she said it really didn't have a wiener, but you got the point. So they cut off that piece, but it still had the hole where it should be. And so she's like, okay, it's not there anymore. It doesn't change the fact that you're getting peed on.
Yes.
And he looks like one of those, he looks like, not Precious Moments dolls, but like in that like realm back in the day, when you have those old weird plastic dolls. And
he looks like he belongs at Bob's Big Boy or something.
Yeah,
he doesn't really have a place at a Japanese steakhouse, in my humble opinion. But I mean
I don't know. I can see the cheesy, funny part of it, but I also think it's tacky. Yeah. I don't know if I'd call the police. I'd probably just give them a bad Yelp review or something.
Well, and she said, it doesn't change the fact you're getting peed on. I'm like, it's water. You're not getting peed on. Now, if it comes out warm and yellow, then you should be worried. But otherwise, I don't know, man. I don't know.
God, these dolls, they're just out of control.
Yes. That's really the point of that story.
Yeah, exactly. So, to kind of follow up on that theme, since we're talking about dolls, I guess we'll go ahead and dive into 2016's The Boy. This movie features Lauren Cohen, who plays the character Greta. She's widely known on TV as Maggie from The Walking Dead, and she's also known for her, I guess, as far as Rotten Tomatoes is concerned, her highest rated movie that she's been in was a movie called Casanova back in 2005, and that got a 44% on the aggregation site. And her co-star Rupert Evans, who plays the character Malcolm, his TV credit was The Man in the High Castle and 2004 Hellboy, which got an 81%. So what I'm going to do this time is going to just pretty much give a brief summary of the whole movie, and then we'll talk about the things that were weak about it. So I'm pretty sure we'll have a lot of stuff to kind of rail on concerning this movie. But Lauren Cohen, who's British, she's playing an American nanny in a remote English village who's hailed to take care of a family's 8-year-old. She later finds out that the boy is actually a life-size doll that the parents care for, just like a real boy. The parents do this to cope with the death of their actual son, who died 20 years prior in a fire. After violating a list of strict rules that they gave her, a series of disturbing and inexplicable events brings Greta's worst nightmare to life, leading her to believe that the doll is actually alive. So as the movie goes on, we find out that the real Braun actually survived the fire. And getting her there was pretty much an elaborate plot to have Greta stay there as a mate for Braun. So a little bit later on in the movie, essentially, the characters find out about Brahm, of course, and a fight ensues, and Brahm gets the upper hand on Malcolm and threatens to kill him if Greta leaves. She leaves anyway. She ends up having a change of heart. She then goes back with the screwdriver to save Malcolm. She ends up getting in a tussle with Brahm. She stabs him with the screwdriver as he's trying to choke her out. He eventually collapses from the screwdriver. I think that was in his stomach. Greta ends up retrieving Malcolm. And at the end of the movie, we see Brahm stabbing and playing with the shattered doll that Greta was taking care of earlier in the movie. Okay, so
I gotta make one real quick comment, because this is the one thing that just really made me crazy about the whole movie is, for some dude that's lived in a wall, has like burns and everything, he is sure one strong, like super powerful Jason Friday the 13th dude. I mean, he like tossed her when she stabbed him. Yeah. He tossed her up into a wall from across the room. And I'm like, really? You think a dude that's lived in the walls his whole life is going to be that strong? You're freaking crazy. Like,
hey, that's what love will do to you, apparently.
Whatever that kind of love is. But give me a break. And then he survived being stabbed in the stomach. Like, he didn't go get treated, so he just, what happens, you know?
Well, let's just start off from the beginning. Like, the premise as a whole, let's just kind of go around and just kind of see what people thought of that as far as the movie is concerned. Because if you didn't see this movie and you kind of see the previews, of course, they didn't reveal that, the character of Brahm was still alive in the trailers. They didn't reveal that. So, me going in, I thought that this was just going to be another, movie about a doll, just, kind of getting out of control and, wrecking things. So that little twist was something that I don't know if I was initially expecting, because all of the attention throughout the movie they put on this doll. So you're kind of waiting to see it, start doing some things. So the premise as a whole, did you feel like the revelation that Brahm was alive, do you think it's something that worked? And do you feel like they waited too late in the game to kind of reveal that? Because I think that they could have done a little bit more had that been revealed earlier in the movie.
So when you mentioned this movie, I remember I had been interested in it when it came out. And then I remembered when I started actually watching it, the reason I hadn't seen it was because someone had seen it, someone in my life, I don't even remember who, and told me that not only was it not scary, but that the twist was the guy was living in the walls. So unfortunately, I went into my first viewing of it without even that element of surprise, because I was just like, when's the guy going to pop out of the wall? And it made it so much more like, when you watch something that has a big twist the second time and you see how it could have been done, you're like, oh, okay, so he was in the wall, so that's how the doll got moved, and that's how this happened. And so that kind of wrecked a film that wasn't that great in the first place for me. But we've talked about some stories of people living in the walls or attics or whatever of people's houses. We've talked about that. We've seen that. Oh man, that one movie that we watched.
Housebound was better.
Housebound was much better because it was funny too. That being said, I like this premise because who doesn't feel a little creep in the back of their neck when you think about things going missing in your house, normal every day, or maybe someone's breaking in, which is bad enough, but in actuality, someone's been living in your house the whole time. Like, that's a big old can of nope. So the premise was cool, but yeah, unfortunately, I was already on to the big twist of the film.
What do you think about that, Christy? Could they have done something a little bit better?
Well, yeah. I mean, I get tired. I think the whole something's not what it seems is kind of played out. I would like to just see, like Annabelle, I mean, I was expecting, the first time I watched this, I don't know if Annabelle was even there in existence, but that's kind of what I was thinking was going to happen. And there were so many things that went wrong in this movie that I knew going in because I had seen it before. And I knew I didn't like it, and I knew I had probably blocked it out because I just, so I was watching it, and I see so many horror movies a year that they all kind of get forgotten at times. So, and I went into this doing it the wrong way because I watched The Babadook before I watched this, and that is a good freaking movie. And so then I was like, okay, now I got to watch The Boy again because I need to refresh, and it was just ridiculous. Like, if this dude, he was living in the walls, and up until you find out he's living in the walls, he was as silent as a mouse. But then once you realize he's living in the walls, you can hear every move he makes behind the walls. Like, seriously, I just felt like it was not well thought out. And I don't really I know y'all like slasher films and weirdo maniac films. I want paranormal stuff. So I really get pissed when I go into something thinking it's paranormal and it's not. So this was a big old no from every direction as far as I'm concerned.
So I think one of the things that just bugged me was the fact that you've got Lauren Cohen, who's British, playing an American.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In Britain, I think that she should have just played herself. But I'm like, so what is this? Like only an American would take that gig of like going to Europe and taking care of a doll? You know what I mean? Like what was they trying to... I don't know what was up with that. So that was kind of disappointing and a classic example of just trying to do too much.
Yeah, one thing I realized like when I was watching the movie is just how pretty she is. I mean, in The Walking Dead, I mean, she's naturally very pretty, but when you really get her like in movie form, I mean, she's beautiful. She is. So I was like, I mean, I had forgotten kind of just how gorgeous she is. When you watch her playing kind of a rough and tough, wilderness horror show, she's not always, her looks really didn't stand out. But in this movie, since there was nothing else to focus on, I was really like, wow. I mean, I left that movie with like her being like a major girl crush, she was very pretty and she's a good actress. So it sucks that she was in this. Like she could have really, and I hope that she's got something more better ahead of her because she really is pretty and she is talented. I didn't get a hint of British from her at all. She was very American. So that's my positive of the movie right there. Is she's hot and she's a good actress and she should do better.
Yeah, I've always had a thing for her for sure. Like even in Walking Dead, because I think even all rough and tumble, I think she's naturally like she glows, like she's pretty, and then I like tough girls. So yeah, I've always been into her, and that's why I had been excited when this film originally came out. I was like, I like creepy dolls and I like Lauren Cohen, but then when I heard what the twist was, I was like, well, what's the point? Even if it's good, like kind of what's the point of watching it? Someone spoiled it for me. Thanks, whoever you are. If I remember, I will find you. But
well, I have to tell you that there was one thing that did creep me out in this movie, and that is when he reveals himself and he's still talking like a little kid.
I was going to say there were two creepy moments in this film, and that was one of them. Yeah.
And then as he starts to talk, then his normal voice comes out. Now that was pretty creepy. Yeah. But I have one more question. If he was in a fire, how come only his face was burnt? Like, you see his arms and his chest and everything. You see no burns. It's only exactly where the mask covers.
Hey, listen.
Like, did he just shove his face in the fire?
Happen, don't you hold your face to them? I mean, I totally would be like, this is where I want to burn.
For the same reason that all the zombies in The Walking Dead wear long sleeves. That's extra money.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? For that makeup, that's extra time.
I never thought of that, and now I'm going to think of that every time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like nobody's trying to pay that extra money when you can just it kind of to jump on that, and this movie's so weak that we can actually jump into The Walking Dead. I've always we've always noticed that thing for the most part. It was actually like a riff on The Walking Dead about everybody wearing long sleeves, and I always laugh because I was like, from the beginning of the series, I'm like, people in Georgia during that time of year ain't wearing those fucking those long sleeves. It's like everybody's got on long sleeves, and it's pretty hilarious. But speaking of a long haul, do y'all think that this movie should have been longer or shorter? No. Do you think it was? You think any longer you would have probably torn your head off, or?
would have torn the doll's head off a lot sooner. So I didn't. There's the twist. Well, one thing I wanted to go back to real quick. Lauren Cohen's character believing that it's something spiritual because she's lost a child and blah blah. Like, do y'all buy that shit? Like, did you roll your eyes at her? Because honestly, there's a long jump from I've lost a child to this doll is clearly like, instead of investigating, I don't know, like you said, like looking to see if there's somebody living in the house or finding any other explanation. She's just like, nope, this is my boy. I'm gonna take care of him now. Like, she went straight from not believing to just like, he's my child and it's my duty to protect him with my life. Like, did you guys buy that jump at all?
I mean, I didn't. Was that something that sold you, Christy?
I can't say it sold me. I think when you're, I couldn't not. I don't know. I could see how that could be a reach because she's been in this big ass creepy house for over a week now. Some weird things are happening and she doesn't know quite what they are. And I think like being in solitude with a weird ass doll, and then weird things were happening. So because she was in the mental state she was in from her crazy ass relationship and all that maybe that you could make that leap. I never in a million years would think somebody's living in my walls. So I would think ghost before I would think somebody's living in the house in the walls. And so she was up in the attic and there was no clue that, there was this whole other like secret world, in the walls. I don't know. I just think I think it's just a weird plot to begin with. It just did not in any way sell me at all. Like, if I'd much rather had been a ghost in the doll than some weirdo living in the walls. It's just my thing.
Well, before we move on to the next topic here, I kind of put in the notes, do we think that it'll be a sequel? Because they did the movie on a budget of $10 million. It made $64.2 million. So it totally, made a profit for them. And the way that the movie ended, as Moni had mentioned earlier, there could still be something left with the character of Brahm. So do you think, on the offhand chance that they're just like, you know what? We could probably put an extra $2 million into it, do something a little bit better with that character, or $5 million. I mean, because like I said, they made a ton of money off of it. Do you think that they'll give it a shot? I mean, why not though? It's not like,
the secret's already out. I mean, it's that whole fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me thing. Like I think everybody went into this movie thinking what I thought and what it was meant to be, and then by the reviews, we can see that didn't work for them. So in theory, they could make one, and there could be maybe making a little bit of money, but they're not going to make the profit that they did, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you think, Moni?
I could imagine Brahm as like the next Michael Myers style, like killer that can't be killed, maybe going into a different house or somebody else moves in not knowing. But I could see it being a direct-to-DVD sequel that doesn't do anything near what this one did, and Lauren Cohen wisely not being involved. I did want to say, like, her character in the first half of this film, just backing up a little bit, she was me. Like, that whole, her reaction when she first found out it was a freaking doll, and then, like, talking to her girlfriend on the phone, like, I don't know why I'm watching a doll. It's so weird. Like, that's why I just didn't buy that she went from where I would have been with that situation to, hey, I'm just going to get paid to be in this kind of big weird house for a week or a couple weeks. But from going from that situation to just like, it's spiritual, we're meant to be together, I'm going to protect this boy. Like, I don't know. But I want to say too, there were, for me, 2 genuinely creepy moments that weren't like scary. But when he comes out of the wall, even though I knew that was going to happen, and I've been waiting for it the whole film, the way he looked, like that contortionist thing always gets me. So as he was like, the hands coming out of the wall, like, oh my gosh, I was just like, ew, I knew this was coming, but they did a good job with it. So that part was fun. And then the other part, Krista, you can probably feel me on this, when he wants a kiss.
Oh, yeah.
He's got his little baby voice, and then he like holds her down. He's like super rapey. It's like that whole like person with a mind like a child, well, with a mind like a child in a man's body. Like, so he has the man's urges. Oh my God. And he's super strong and he could have done whatever he wanted. That was a creepy moment where I was just like, shivers. Like, every woman knows at least how it feels to be hugged too tightly by somebody.
Yes.
So, it was just like, yeesh.
Yep.
Well, to kind of continue along the theme of, I guess in this case, Brahm is not necessarily an intruder, but Moni, tell us about these 10 creepy stories of intruders hiding in people's homes.
Dudes. Okay. I'm so California. I'm like, dudes.
Tubular.
I'm like, what came out of my mouth? So there's something kind of similar to this story a little, well, not so much with the family, like this is a real doll, this doll is a real boy. But in 2008 in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, the Ferrance family was noticing strange sounds in the house during the days leading up to Christmas. At first, Stacy Ferrance just assumed that cats or one of the 3 children were making the noises. On Christmas Day, a few things went missing at 2 separate times, first in the afternoon and then in the evening. It was as if someone had broken into their house twice and stolen some of their Christmas presents, so the family notified the police. The following day, they found footprints, nope, in the closet of one of the bedrooms, Jesus, which led into the attic. They called the police again, and the police brought a dog with them, and in the attic, they found 21-year-old Stanley Carter. He was wearing Stacy's sweatshirt and sneakers and her daughter's pants. And it gets better. He had been staying with the residents of the other part of the duplex connected to their family home. The residents there had asked him to leave and discovered him missing on December 19th. Presumably, that's when he entered the shared attic space. And in July 2009, he got his wish of a small crawl space to live in because he was sentenced up to 23 months in jail. At least he'll have a home for that time. So that's lovely. This one, okay, so if you ever think you've had a bad ex-boyfriend or girlfriend that you can't get rid of, this is terrifying. Oh, my God. So Tracy, who didn't want her name revealed, was a single mother of 5. Is this the one? Dippa. Yes, okay. Yeah. Single mother of 5 who lived in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And in September 2012, she started to notice weird sounds coming from the attic. And nails were popping out of the ceiling. Okay, first of all, get an exorcist.
Oh, shit.
Tracy and 2 of her sons went into the attic to investigate, but didn't find anything out of the norm. Well, clearly something's out of the norm if nails are coming out of your ceiling. Her children thought she was just being delusional, but there's real nails, guys. But Tracy was sure there was something going on and felt really uneasy. One night, when Tracy was working on her laptop in the bedroom, a little bit of plaster fell on her from movement in the attic. Nope.com. Another night at 2:30 a.m., Tracy heard a loud noise and knew that something or someone was up there. She got her nephew to look into the attic, and there, in the back corner, was Tracy's ex-boyfriend, whom she had dated 12 years prior. It looked like the unnamed ex had been living there for about 2 weeks, and just 90 days before that, he'd gotten out of prison for stealing Tracy's car. 12 years. Can you imagine this woman's ordeal of this guy stealing her car, like obviously stalking her? So in the attic, they found cups of feces and urine. Oh, it's a library. What? They also found a hole that he had cut so he could watch Tracy in her bedroom. That's the worst part of all, I swear. The ex-boyfriend fled, and no report of him being caught could be found, so you might want to check your own attic before going to bed tonight. Oh, my God, he never got caught, you guys.
Yeah. How is that possible? For him not to have gotten caught. That's crazy.
I have to tell you, and I'm sure this is normal in any house, but because we have done so much remodeling in our house, we have so many hidey holes in this house, and half of the upstairs is attic. That we could complete for a new room if we wanted to. So this just whole thing freaks me out. That could easily happen here if they could figure out a way in our house, without being detected, because we have a ton of space that's never been completed. We even made a new attic space in our garage, because right above the garage.
Ooh, more living space. I love it.
Yeah, there's
the
tons.
Square footage.
But we lived there. We lived here for 10 years before we found it. somebody could have been, crawling around and somehow found all this extra space in our house that we didn't know was there. So that really freaks me out.
Yeah, everybody, there's a good place to squat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of squatting, they found several Route 44 Sonic cups filled with feces and urine up there as well. So that is just crazy. I mean, yeah, because that's the gall. Because I think the fact that makes it even creepier is the fact that this is a relationship from over a decade ago. So this person has probably over all those years had already still been, kind of keeping an eye on this person. So that's even creepier. And I don't seem to think that there's been any type of follow-up to this. So apparently this guy is still on the loose, because I can't find anything on Google about him being caught.
That's crazy. Can I read? I want to read number 4 because this one's crazy.
Yeah.
Carlo Castellanos Fiera. That's a really long name. Sorry. So Carlo met Michelle Fredenberg Onion. What's with all these big ass names? At a hospital. Yeah. At a hospital in Washington, D.C., where they both worked. Castellos was a valet while Fredenberg was a director of physical therapy. After meeting Fredenberg the 32-year-old valet became obsessed and started stalking her. At some point, she left her keys unattended, and Castellos swiped them. He made copies and then returned the keys without her noticing. One day, Castellos entered Fredenberg's home and set up a camera on a desk in her bedroom.
No.
Then, whenever he would hear Fredenberg and her boyfriend come into the apartment, he would hide under the bed.
No.
He managed to do this for 2 days before the boyfriend finally caught him. Under the bed, Castellos had condoms, latex gloves, a change of clothes, and a power cord.
Oh, I'm sure he was planning good things with those tools.
Absolutely. Castellos was arrested, and when police searched his home, they found 6 framed pictures of Fredenberg, another stack of unframed pictures, and a video from her first wedding. Castellos had broken into the house of his victim's ex-husband to attain the material.
No.
He was convicted and sentenced to 38 months in prison. That's it. The creepy story was made into a movie called Under the Bed by one of the co-directors of the Blair Witch Project.
What a girl got to do to get a creeper in jail for life?
That story gives me the chills, man. Holy crap. I had to deal with a stalker when I was dating, when I was divorced, and it was horrifying, like terrifying. And I seriously, it got to the point where me and my ex, now husband again, shared custody with our kids week on, week off, and it got to the point where I thought I shouldn't have my kid, like he needed to keep the kids until I could get it figured out. But I finally got a friend of a friend involved who was a police officer and made a phone call to him and scared him to death. I had went on one date with this guy, and it lasted 15 minutes because I met him at a restaurant that I always go to, and so they knew me, and he was real gregarious, very successful, vice president of a company, and he was just really like not into boundaries. Like he kept getting in my space, and I had just met him, so I was just a little uncomfortable with it. And then he, out of nowhere, while we were having a drink, because we were standing, slapped me on the butt and said, can I don't even remember exact words, something like, come on your chest and something. And I was like, check, please. Well,
like not right now.
I just like 15 minutes ago, I've met this, for the first time I actually fully met him. I had talked to him before, but never really hung out with him. Yeah. And the problem was when I was talking to the bartender, because it was so close to my house, we were having a conversation about stuff going on my street, because it was in the middle of a huge renovation. The neighborhood's still going through huge renovations, and because it was a historical area, and he figured out what street I lived on. And my Jeep at the time was lifted, and I lived in an old house, so it wouldn't fit in my garage. And so he found where I lived, and he started driving up and down my street for days. And this was in the winter, and he kept sending me, because I immediately was like, I gotta go. I just remembered I gotta get my kids. Well, he never took the hint and kept texting me, and I wouldn't respond. And then till the texts were like, "You fucking bitch," blah, 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 you know, and I was just like, just deleting. And I shouldn't have deleted them. I should have saved them, because if somebody hadn't believed me, this could have really been a problem. And then it snowed, and he sends me a text of an M peed in the snow, which the cops, I sent it, that one I sent to the police, and he said basically he thinks it's an M for murder. Like, I didn't know. And so he's like, give me this guy's phone number and let me see what I can do. And because it's really hard to file stalking charges.
Yep.
Like, you can't just say somebody's stalking me. And so when I talked to him, he's like, stop deleting the texts, because I understand you don't even want to see them. I'm like, you have to understand, every time I pull up my text thread, those words are there. Like, it's scary and freaky, and it makes you feel uncomfortable and sick to your stomach. And he's like, I get it, but you can't delete them. And so finally, I gave him the police officer's phone number, and they called him, and they were like, if you send her one more message or drive by her house one more time, you're going to jail. And I never saw him again or heard from him again. So, like, I could see him, like, if I had actually had a relationship with him, like, can you imagine? Like, if I tried to break it off.
It was that quote unquote easy to get rid of him, as far as, like, some of them get threatened and they keep coming back. But if you would just stop keeping all those drugs in your lady parts and, drawing all the boys like geese to fall in, maybe this wouldn't have happened. So victim shaming, yes, definitely.
Yeah, 15 minutes of a date, and that's where he was. And, he was an ex-MMA fighter, so that was even better.
Yeah.
I was like, great. So,
all testosterone. I own you now.
Few loose screws, yeah.
Now, before we kind of segue into what Christy's going to have as a topic next week, let's just quickly talk about one more that's on the list. And of course, it shouldn't surprise anybody that when you're a celebrity and you have a lot of money, you have a lot of property, you kind of open yourself up to different things that could potentially happen to you. So here goes the story of John M. Dubus. He was actually someone who had an order of protection issued against him by none other than Jennifer Lopez. He had a habit of stalking her. So he ended up breaking onto her property. It's actually a $10 million mansion in Southampton, New York. They actually discovered him on the property and ended up calling the police because he'd been living in the pool house for an entire week before anyone had noticed him. And then after he was apprehended, he was posting Facebook pictures of him hanging out on the property and doing all of these types of things. So once again, social media strikes again of people like, what do they call them? People dumb people have smartphones. So he ends up actually having, a lot of incriminating evidence that he had posted on Facebook. But that has to be a definite drawback when you own all of this property. You have all of these guest areas and guest houses. It's kind of hard to keep account of that because to be honest with you, like a lot of times in California, you probably know this, Moni, like a lot of places, they might have security, but it's not like Fort Knox, security at their households.
I don't know. Like, I'm sure Ms. Lopez fired her groundskeeper and her security team after that one. But I know that, like, I was on the long driveway of a certain celebrity's unlisted home, and there was a camera at the end of the driveway, and of course I was taking pictures because I was at this person's home, and the security for the housing development for the neighborhood was there so freaking quick, like you wouldn't even believe. So I'm not really sure, like, I feel like in this day and age, and this was what, 5-10 years ago, 2013, that you would have cameras everywhere. So at least somebody sitting in an office, or a room of your mansion or whatever, your property, could see what's going on in all of the buildings. But I guess maybe they do by now. So.
Yeah, there's always a vulnerable area, though. If you have like all of this land, I don't know, and you've got some pretty brazen people, but I agree with you. Today, there's even more cameras than there were in 2013. So that's probably one of the ways that they kind of track you. I totally see someone sitting in a room in a division, and that's their job, is to specifically watch cars that are coming in front of certain people's houses. But let's talk about what we're going to have going on next week. What are you going to have for us, Christy?
Well, I was wanting to kind of find something that would be interesting, true crime, but kind of like horror related. And I've never heard of this. Has anybody heard of the Cropsey myth?
Yes, I actually have watched this.
Oh, you have? Okay.
It's interesting, though.
Okay, good. I thought it would be interesting, and I from reading the reviews, it's not a horror movie. It's a documentary about two people who grew up in Staten Island as kids were warned not to go near this closed down psychiatric hospital because there was a man called Cropsey there. And I don't know if he was a spirit or like a Freddy Krueger or like a Jason thing, but he would kidnap you and kill you as children. And so this was, beware of the Cropsey, kind of like their boogeyman. And then girls actually did end up missing, and they actually did convict somebody who I believe was a mental hospital worker. We'll get more into it probably after we watch it, but I thought it would be an interesting little segue of kind of, we've talked about urban myths, we've talked about Nightmare on Elm Street, and we've talked about some true crime. So this is kind of like all three mushed together. So we're going to watch this documentary, Cropsey, and then also talk about not just the documentary, but the actual murders and the whole conversation around these missing children and what happened.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a creepy story, and I know, just having watched the documentary, I don't remember it too much, but I do remember at first it was like a lot of the older kids and the parents were just kind of conceding that it was a way to keep their kids in line, kind of that boogeyman story of like, you don't want to disobey your parents or go running around by yourself because the Cropsey will get you. But then it turned out that was actually happening. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds like some good stuff. Well, if do either of you have anything else to add before we wrap this puppy up?
Our drunk episode, Christy and my between the episode, at least for people that actually are in my personal life that listen to it, really enjoyed that.
They did? Oh, good.
They most especially enjoyed Christy being so quote unquote lit, but
oh yeah, it was. It was funny because I waited. I guess I edited it the next day, and I don't remember much, but I was actually laughing at us on the show. So it was, but laughing in a third party, But then when the realization of that was actually me doing that, I was like, oh my God, what a hot mess! Like, what an embarrassment. But oh well, if they liked it, great.
Always some killer stuff with y'all and some drinks now. Okay, well, look, that'll wrap it up. I had a great time, and I look forward to next week. And all right, creepers, have a nice time, and we'll see you next time.
Creep it real.
Never talk to strangers was her mother's first advice. Now her latest stranger doesn't speak a word. Silence at the tables, no domestic paradise. But from what she's seen, the silence is preferred. He walks out the front door of his castle like a king. One look in her eyes, he'd say he's not the king of anything he done. Well, don't make the same mistake your mama did.